Good morning, children. In this session, we will study more about Akbar's policies. During his period, he was administration. How was the administration taken place, and how did he collect the revenue, etc. We studied. Now, what were the policies? How was Akbar making the policies for ruling an effective government? So, the broad features of the administration were laid down by Akbar, were elaborately discussed by Abul Fasl in his book. We already studied in the previous class about Akbar Nama and Aini Akbar. These are books, 3 volumes of books written by Abul Fasl, one of the close friends and courtiers of Akbar. So, in these books, Abul Fasl wrote in Akbar Nama, last volume of the book, the 3rd volume, the Aini Akbari. In this book, he clearly mentions about the administration and what were the policies of Akbar. We can find here Abul Fazl explained that the empire was divided into provinces. It was divided into many provinces because it was very large and vast, and these provinces were called Subas. So, Subas were governed or administered by a person in charge who was known as the Subedar, who carried out both political and military functions also. He was in charge of the commander of the military. At the same time, the political administration also he carried out in the province. So, each province also had a financial officer called Diwan. Dealing with the financial matters, there was also a person in charge who was known as Diwan. For the maintenance of peace and order in the province, the Subedar was supported by other officers. Also, we know that law and order maintenance has to be done in the kingdom. So that in provinces, there were other officers also in order to support the Subedar, who were known as the military paymaster, who was the name was given, or the term used in the Mughal period was Bakshi, was a military paymaster. And other person, the minister in charge of religious and charitable patronage, he was known as Sadar. That means he deals with the religion and how the charitable activities were taken place. All were dealt by the Sadar, or the religious and charitable patronage in charge. Then the military commanders were there. They were known as the Faujdas, and the town police commander, he was known as the Kotwal. So these were the other important officers. Bakshi or Sadar, Faujda and Kotwal were the other important officers who also helped the provincial governor or Subedar in his administration. During Akbar's period, we know that Akbar's nobles, there were some rich and powerful persons in the kingdom. They commanded large armies and had access to large amounts of revenue also. These noblemen or the rich personalities also had their own armies. They also had large amounts of revenue with them, and very rich and prosperous people they were. While they were also loyal to the empire, functioned efficiently, but at the end of the 17th century, many nobles had built independent networks of their own. In the beginning stages, we know these nobles were very loyal, very honest towards the Mughal emperor, and even they helped the Mughal emperor with army whenever the Mughal emperor needed army for waging war with any other or capturing any territories. These people or these nobles also helped the Mughal emperor with the army. But by the end of 17th century, we come to know that they also turned against the Mughal emperor, and they built independent kingdom within their realm. So their royalties, so here we can find that these people, they were not much, by the end of the 17th century, they are becoming independent also. So their loyalties or their honesty towards the empire were weakened by their own self-interest. Why they were they wanted to gain independence, and they wanted to rule their area independently, so that when they left their support from the Mughal Empire, and the Mughal Empire began to come down or weaken. So while Akbar was in Fatehpur Sikri during the 1570s, he started discussions on religions. We know that during this period, Akbar's period, Akbar was much religious. He also started religious discussions with the people, okay, different faiths, people of different faiths. That means the people who are belonging to, the scholars who are belonging to different religions were called to discuss about the religious matters in Fatehpur Sikri. So, who were the people? Who were that ulama? Ulama was the Muslim scholars, then Brahmanas from the Hindus, Jesuit priests who were the Roman Catholics or the Christians, and also Zoroastrians. So all these religious scholars were called to discuss with Akbar in Fatehpur Sikri. So these discussions took place in the place where called Ibadat Khana. It was a big hall where these all religious leaders or scholars came to meet Akbar, and here in this Ibadat Khana he was also interested in religion and social customs of different people. So he wanted to learn about how the people in different religions are practicing their faiths. Akbar's interaction with these people of different faiths made him to realize that religious scholars who emphasized rituals and dogma were often bigots. So that means what he felt after discussing with all these people, he understood or realized that the religious people, all the what were the religious rituals or practices were taking place were also emphasized by the people or their religious leaders are making the people blindly believe the faiths. Okay, that means without knowing the real fact, these leaders are making the people to believe blindly whatever their practices. Okay, so that may not be sometimes true. So for their own advantages, these leaders are making the people to believe blindly whatever they taught. So their teachings created division and disharmony amongst his subjects. He felt that during the Akbar's period, he felt all these teachings are creating divisions in the society. So all people are divided on the basis of their religion and caste. So this eventually led the Akbar to the idea of Sulhi-Kul, which means universal peace. In order to create a universal peace or Sulhi-Kul, Akbar wanted to create a different religion in order to make harmony or cooperate to the people each other. So this idea of tolerance did not discriminate between the people of different religions in his realm. He felt that if this idea, Sulhi-Kul or universal peace, is encouraged, all people will not be divided in their different faiths. Instead, it focused on a system of ethics, honesty, justice, peace that was universally acceptable. So his ideology of universal peace or Sulhi-Kul was that it was based on particular ethics or policies or justice and peace, etc. So Abul Fazl helped Akbar in framing a vision of governance around the idea of Sulhi-Kul. So it was also Abul Fazl was always helpful to Akbar in creating such a ideology of Sulhi-Kul. So this principle of governance was followed by even Jahangir and Shah Jahan also. What the Akbar followed this the tolerance towards other religion and creating all the people together, making all the people together in order to work for Sulhi-Kul. This was also followed by Jahangir and Shah Jahan also. Jahangir was Akbar's son. He described his father's policy of Sulhi-Kul in his own words. How Jahangir described the father's policy of Sulhi-Kul. So as in the wide expanse of the divine compassion, there is room for all classes and the followers of all creeds. So in his imperial dominions, which on all sides were limited only by the sea, There was room for the professors of opposite religions and for beliefs good and bad, and the road to intolerance was closed. What he explains is here is Jahangir explained that in the Akbar's kingdom the limit was up to the sea was the limit. So that in his kingdom all the religious people had equal importance. They were all welcomed there in his kingdom of different faiths. There were no differences between the different religions here. Sunnis and Shias, they were also different sects of the same religion or Islam. So these also met in one mosque. So Sunnis and Shias, they were different sect of the Islam, but they all met in one mosque and prayed together. Christians and Jews also in one church to pray. He consistently followed the principle of universal peace or the sulhul. Here that means all religious sects of the people, wherever there were many divisions in each religion, they were allowed to pray in the same church or same mosque or same temple. Now we can find Nur Jahan's influence in Jahangir's thought. How Nur Jahan had such a position in the Jahangir's court. Mehrunisa was the name of Nur Jahan previously. She was married to Emperor Jahangir in 1611 and received the title Nur Jahan. So Mehrunisa was renamed as Nur Jahan, or she was given the title Nur Jahan when she married to Emperor Jahangir in 1611. So she remained extremely loyal and supportive to the monarch. She was very honest towards the emperor. As a mark of honor, Jahangir struck silver coins bearing his own titles on one side, and the other side the inscription struck in the name of Queen Begum Nur Jahan. So when also Jahangir was also giving much respect to his queen, so that in the coins one side where Jahangir's picture was there and the other side there was the name of the inscription was the name struck in the name of the Queen Begum Nur Jahan. It was mentioned in the coins also. So the adjoining document here in the textbook which gives was a farman or the order of Nur Jahan. So Nur Jahan also had such a kind of power in the kingdom in the Mughal Empire during that period. She also gives farman or the order to the people. The square seal states that command of her most sublime and elevated majesty Nur Jahan Padsha Begum. It was mentioned that Nur Jahan Padsha Begum. The round seal states that by the son of Shah Jahangir, she became as brilliant as moon. May Nur Jahan Padsha be the lady of the age, which means she was such a bold and courageous woman, and it shows all about her power and control of the kingdom, and she was very loyal to the emperor and helped in the Jahangir in the administration of the kingdom also. That's all for today. Thank you.